This program is brought to you by the following proud sponsors: Paulson Manufacturing, saving the eyes and lives of workers and first responders by manufacturing the highest quality and most reliable safety protective gear in the world. And by the Alltech Media Group, the region's leading multimedia video production and marketing company, creating powerful and innovative marketing strategies that deliver exponential returns.
Growing opportunities abound today for qualified workers interested in truly good paying career-oriented jobs with manufacturers, not just in Southern California, but across the country as well. But as many companies know full well, there is a shortage of well-qualified candidates for those jobs, and in many cases, those workers who are already employed with manufacturers do not have the developed skill sets to promote to those open positions. So what to do? Today's panelists will talk with us about what their schools are doing to help prepare students and current employees for new manufacturing careers as we bring you our first Educators Roundtable on this edition of Manufacturers Corner. Okay. Hello everyone, and thank you for being here for Manufacturers Corner, a presentation of California CEO Online Video Business Magazine. I'm Jeff Allen, and if you missed our debut episode featuring our insightful chat about disruptive technology with Roy Paulson of Paulson Manufacturing, you can view that story on demand by visiting manufacturerscorner.com. On this edition of Manufacturers Corner, we are featuring our first in an ongoing series of Educators Roundtable talks. Our panelists: Alicia Serrano, Interim Director of Economic Development at Chaffey College in Rancho Cucamonga, California. Her colleague, Kathleen L. Dutton, Director of Employment Development and Community Education at Chaffey, and Robert Grajeda, Director of Corporate and Business Development, Riverside Community College District. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. It's nice to have you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to be here, Jeff.
Well, let's open up today's talk. I want to talk about an article that was featured in the LA Times last week, and I'm going to kind of read a little bit, so I'll kind of divert. It talks about Southland adding jobs at rapid pace, but many have low pay, reports say. And that was the headline on that, and includes a statement, a quote here: "Manufacturing is the key to making more money for our workforce, but our workforce needs help to gain the proper skills," end quote. So my question, I guess, to start today, what are some of the skills that are highest in demand right now from our manufacturers that you've seen or that you've heard about and you're communicating with these businesses? Let's start with you, first of all, Robert. From what you know, what are some of those high demand skills?
I think what manufacturers and other business leaders have told us, and certainly in my job, I find that we're asked for the ability to be a team player, so some soft skills there, the ability to be aware of the demands of the job and to be able to work to help support the bottom line for the employer. But then there's technical skills that are required, technical skills that are important to the production of a product, to produce the service that they're doing, and so it's a very interesting mix of the requirements. But most employers say that sometimes the job pool, that is the pool of employees out there that they potential hires, there's a difficulty in finding the right candidate to fill in those positions that are open with technical skills that come ready to go. In other words, there's training sometimes needed, but that's what we've heard from the employers that we've connected with.
And the same at Chaffey goes true from all of the communication that you've had. Would you agree with Robert on that?
I would agree. I think that from our manufacturer sector, which is very strong in our region, the craft training skills, the mechanical craft and the electrical craft, those craft skills are just not there. We've lost a lot of that programs we used to have in the high schools, you know, the shop classes and that kept kids in school, and also they, they dedicated themselves to those interests because they saw something happening. They saw a product at the end of their work. Well, that's not happening, and so we don't have that pipeline that we used to have. So they're struggling with getting qualified workers.
So I guess then the next question is, Alicia, what are the schools doing to be more responsive to the needs of the manufacturers who have that skill debt with respect to their employees and the needs that they have?
Well, there's two approaches. When we're talking about an existing workforce, incumbent workers, our colleges, both Chaffey College, Riverside, and other colleges in our region are very responsive through offering customized training where we're able to go in directly into that workplace, identify what the potential skills gaps are, and work towards providing training that shores those skills up. So we're able to impact the business by directly upgrading existing employee skills. The other side of the coin is, who I think you were originally talking about, is our entry-level workforce. And I think Chaffey might be best to speak to an incredible initiative that's happening in our region to try to assist manufacturers with their entry-level workforce.
Well, let's expand on that just a little bit, Kathy.
Well, we've developed some pilot programs that we worked in partnership with our workforce investment boards. And we developed short-term intensive training for electrical craft and mechanical craft, giving a little bit of computer skills in that mix and really honing in on the professional development and really basic work ethics, that you show up on time and you're teachable and all of those things. So we've combined that into a 40-hour-a-week program that's 10 weeks long. And we were very successful in those completers of that program. The industry actually helped design the curriculum. They came in, they were guest speakers, and those individuals were hired and have proven to be long-term successful employees. We've done this for about 4 years. And so because of that success, and because of an internship program, a paid internship program that we developed with California Steel Industries, where we would take our credit students who had had 1 year of electrical craft training and actually put them in an intensive 10-week program over the summer, where they'd spend 2 days a week in a classroom, but 3 days a week actually with the employer, and utilizing those skills and receiving mentoring from the employees at the site. It was very successful, 100% placement. Some of them even placed higher than entry level because they were so well prepared. So we had decided that we wanted to look for a grant where we could bring that to scale for the whole Inland Empire. And the TAACCCT, which is the Trade Adjustment Act, Community College Career Technical Education Program, we were able to secure that grant, the only grant in California, for $15 million. And we are going to build a regional center and work with we identified 10 colleges in the area. RCC is one of them, and Norco. So it's both Riverside and San Bernardino Community Colleges. We're going to work together to each college is going to take a niche, but everything's going to feed back to the center. And we're going to try to grow our own workforce, because it doesn't work when we recruit from other places, because people only stay long enough to get additional training. At the end of a year, they leave. So that is really has a huge negative impact on our human resources at our employers. So they're wanting to grow their own. The talent's here. We just have to provide the avenue for individuals to seek training. And so that's what we're doing.
Well, it's a huge accomplishment. The grant itself, the fact that it was awarded to Chaffey College, and the only one in the state, and it's huge. And it's also great too, the fact that you're able to work with other colleges too in the region, because that way you're able to open up more opportunities to a greater number of students throughout the area. And let's face it, from what we know, inland Southern California is a growing hub, I think, for manufacturing, and we're starting to see the results of that. Robert, how do you see Riverside Community College District working on your end with respect to this particular program? What kinds of students, what kinds of industries are you looking at trying to help bring these employees in or bring these future employees in for a manufacturing education that will get them those career positions?
Well, we've been partners with Chaffey College for many years now. I guess I would say prior to even 2006 when I first started at RCCD. But the specific program that Kathy is talking about, we're hoping to participate in recruiting, eligible folks in our area and do a streaming online training program locally in the Riverside Community College District Service area, and seeing if they basically can take the theory of the courses that are offered at the center that is created with this grant funding, and then there will be opportunities to do I believe lab work with either mobile labs or to travel to the center in the San Bernardino County area at California Steel Industries. But the idea is to make folks aware, especially folks who are looking for employment that it pays a better wage than simply minimum wage, and there's an opportunity for a career there. That's the intent, to have people be successful attaining a job, but that job provides them with a living wage and something that provides for the future of their families and, of course, the growth of the economy in the region. So it's a great opportunity to participate with Chaffey College, and then, of course, our own programs locally. We also do the same type of customized training, that Alicia mentioned earlier, and that's typically for incumbent employees. That is folks that are already working. So we have that support system available. But as far as the increase of better paying jobs and people who have the skills to be hired for those positions, this is a key element to the projects that we have, this grant.
And I'm going to get to the incumbent positions too, because
Sure.
we've talked a little bit, I think in advance, I'm kind of preparing for today's discussion about how the schools are working with companies to help fill those skills gaps with current employees. But I want to kind of go back just a second here. We started at the top. We were talking about that LA Times story that came out last week, and I've seen over the years, in the last probably 4 or 5 years, press articles that have come up in different papers, different media about with a similar theme. We've got these jobs. These are high-tech related jobs that require advanced skill sets, okay? Not necessarily 4-year college degrees, okay, bachelor's or master's, but we're talking about career-oriented jobs with manufacturers. It's a different scene than it was 50 or 60 years ago. We're talking about a completely different landscape in this day and age. So it seems to me that there is, we talked about a skills deficit, there may also be a PR deficit too, because it occurs to me that maybe students, young people today, aren't aware about these jobs. All they know is they're able to walk into a store and buy something that they want. Mm-hmm. They don't know where it's manufactured. Or their parents go in and they buy something that they need to fix up the house. They don't know they don't think about the manufacturing process, when in fact that stuff goes on around us. We have manufacturers in this area where we can buy things locally. And so these jobs are out there. How do we get the word out to these kids? How do we let them know? How do we initiate the recruiting process? How do we go about letting these people know about jobs, career-oriented jobs that pay well in the manufacturing industry that are available today, in order to get them into Chaffey, right, in order to get them to Riverside City College or Riverside Community College District, any of the schools there? We'll start with you, Alicia.
Jeff, I do. I have some thoughts on it. I think there's 3 critical pieces to that. The first we can talk about is social capital. If students don't have access to somebody within their family circle, to somebody who's actually been in this industry or has been in a support industry, outside of retail, outside of healthcare, outside of those types of things, where else are students going to learn about these types of job opportunities? So I think part of it is just looking specifically at who do students have access to. Which brings me to the second thing, which is access. I mean, you talked about how, you know, young people are able to walk into a storefront, or young people are able to walk into a hospital or medical facility. But how frequently are young people able to walk into more of these economic infrastructures like advanced manufacturing or manufacturing firms or logistics? So there's simply an access issue and unawareness. The community colleges for several years have operated grant funding collaboratively throughout our region that focused specifically on career awareness at the middle school and high school level. Advanced manufacturing is one of the key industries that we focused on to help students. There's a number of different events and endeavors that have taken place to help students gain access to this industry and learn about it. So there's social capital, there's access, and I think the last one, which we've talked a little about before, is perception. Gone are the days where a manufacturing facility is necessarily sort of this unsafe, maybe dirty, you know, kind of environment that we've seen in the movies and that our parents might recall from hearing stories from their parents. If you look around at some of the key advanced manufacturing firms in America, in California, outside in other areas of the world, that's simply not the case. When we talk with manufacturers, one of the key things that they're talking about is safety and efficiency. Those are key things that have helped and will continue to help that kind of work environment be ideal for anybody, particularly our kids who are growing up and gaining skills that are going to help them in that environment. So I don't know that I've tackled how do we do it. I'm simply posing that I think there's three areas that we can focus on, which is increasing that social capital, increasing access to awareness about the industry, and then third, opportunities that help reshape perception to make it a more appealing industry for young people to consider.
I think it's almost like there's an educational process that's required before the educational process can really get started.
That's a good point.
If I can jump in on that
Sure.
point you were making about, you know, access and how the how part is something that we're all looking to figure out. One of the things that's happened is, you know, with the advent of social media, most campuses, you know, at universities and of course at community colleges, have social media outlets that disseminate information about courses, about how to register and that sort of thing. But I think that the access to the direct access to the manufacturers to see how their processes work is a key element in getting that awareness that there are jobs out there. An example that I can give recently is that we hosted a tour of the Fender Guitar Manufacturing Center in Corona for students out of Corona High School. And so, you know, this happens to be a really exciting type of location because they're manufacturing these, you know, these famous guitars that all of the rock and roll heroes play, and of course you can see how they're manufactured. They're right here in your backyard. These are the kinds of things that happen when you get a job here. And the display of the types of work that is there in that facility particularly was simply, you know, from building the guitars, the woodworking work that's there, but then it goes on to the tech jobs where the guitars are assembled and tuned, and of course there's a lot of you know, fine-tuning the instruments. But the idea is that these processes will spark that interest of that student, of that individual that wants to be a part of that industry, and really maybe give them the opportunity, hey, you know, it's not just the typical, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, a fireman, you know, a policeman, a doctor. There's a lot of other, you know, jobs out there that are accessible, that have technical requirements to gain access to be able to do well at. And I think that the community colleges are a real major, you know, promoter of getting that type of education, so that the student, you know, the aspiring, you know, employee can get those skill sets to be able to work at a manufacturer like, say, Fender, or some of the other ones that are in our backyard here in the Inland Empire.
And they can aspire to do that. But Robert and Kathy and Alicia, what about the jobs that are needed right now, the jobs that need to be filled right now? Because there is a current demand. And so there's a need, I think, for a, I guess you might say like a fast track kind of solution. And there may not be a solution to fill all of these types of jobs that are out there right now. So what can be done, or what is being done to kind of address that? And if that's not something that can be solved in a day or a year, how close are we getting to the point where we can assess the needs of manufacturers in the community, and yeah, we can have these students ready in 2 years to come to work at your facility? I mean, how
Well, we have designed fast track courses and programs at Chaffey, and several other community colleges have done that as well, to where we can get them in and out and employed. And those are working very well. The problem is we have to get even quicker at it, because some employers are hiring them out of the program, so the students don't complete, which is not a good thing for the student, and the employer will then end up, well, maybe filling that need by going to customized training, but still, for the credential and the certification, they won't have those if they don't complete the program. So there's part of the TACT grant is to speed up that process. I mean, there's different certifications, there's badges. We've all hear about badges and stackable credentials. So you're not looking at the complete degree. You may do one little component, one module of a certification, but you can get a badge for that. But then if you get so many badges, you get that certification. And they're industry recognized certification, usually nationally recognized certifications. So I think that's part of what is going to be the concentration on the TACT grant. Then another issue I think that there's an issue with marketing and putting advanced manufacturing at the level where people can look at it and say, oh yes, I want my kid to do that. I mean, that's a parent issue as well as
Absolutely.
the student issue, because what we find with our grants that we go out and we have great camps and we have a lot of interest, and the student is interested, but then that parent is still holding back. Oh no, I didn't get my degree. I want my child to get there. It's a big thing in this community. So we have to help them realize that a bachelor's degree may not be for everybody, or it may not be right now for everybody. That right now, maybe the best thing to do is get some certifications, get some work experience, and then truly decide where your avenue, where your path, your individual path is going to lead you. And the last thing I think that we're missing is in the nation as a whole, what has kept the United States strong is our innovation. And you get innovation through manufacturing. I mean, that is where it is. The pre-engineering, everything is the imagination, allow it to grow, allow it to experiment, and that's where you'll bring in a lot more of the kids and the parents, because that innovation is very important. I think sometimes we lose that, and that's what's kept us strong economically.
And it's the innovation too that you're talking about that not just leads up to the development of products, but it's the innovation that comes after those products have been released, designed, manufactured. It's the ongoing innovation.
It's the ongoing.
In the state of California, of course, we're very, very fortunate because we have we're so steeped in technological developments and various areas in that regard. I just want to take a moment to stop down for those people who may have turned it back on the stream for whatever reason. You're listening now, or for future reference, you can always tweet in your comments or questions for our guest or panel on any Manufacturers Corner show that we have. Even if it's not real time, you can still tweet those questions in, and we'll get those answers for you. And you simply tweet us at MFGS Corner. Again, that's at MFGS Corner, and you've probably seen it at the bottom of your screen too before we even mentioned anything about that. And we'll repeat that too as we go along through the program and ensuing shows. Let's talk a little bit about current curriculum that has been put in place as a result of your relationships with some of the companies that you're working for. Can any of you provide any examples right now of curriculum that you've designed in order to meet the needs of some of your manufacturing partners?
Well, through the Manufacturers Council, that's exactly why it was developed. I mean, we brought in our electrical instructors, and they sat down with the manufacturers and they adjusted the curriculum to meet the manufacturer's need. We made sure everything was in there, so when they had a graduate from Chaffey, they knew that these things were covered. And then Alicia's program goes in and even further customize that for what may be going on at that specific time, and Robert as well, that customization of the already developed curriculum from industry. And that's what we're moving toward. We're moving toward industry-developed curriculum and programs, listening a lot more to industry. They're becoming more involved. California Steel dedicating a building on their site, and that's going to cost them quite a bit of money. I mean, you're talking about millions of dollars that they're going to put into that effort for the TACT grant. So the TACT grant's only paying a very small portion of that. So, you know, that industry input and their involvement, and they're becoming more and more involved in this area. Our manufacturing day that we just did,
Right.
you toured Fender, and we
Right.
had activity at the Chino airport,
Right.
so we included avionics in that. And these kids, they were just light bulbs flashing. I mean, it was wonderful. So, and the manufacturers love that. The industry partners love that because that's their future workforce. So they're getting that too, and so they're becoming more involved.
Yeah,
And that's important.
Yeah, with the curriculum that you're mentioning, you know, we had talked about customized training, and I don't know if, just to clarify what that is, I'd like to, you know, give you a little bit of a background on that for incumbent workers. So an employer needs to train their employees, and they might come to us and say, you know, we'd like to work on supervisory skills, leadership skills, or process improvement training for our manufacturing processes. So in a sense, you know, what Alicia and my department does, Alicia at Chaffey and my department at RCCD, we basically create curriculum customized for that individual company's needs. So we can create that fast response to a need that is, you know, it's a need. We're not shoving classes that we think are really cool for the employer. Right. We're asking for the employer's input and saying, look, this is for you to tell us what you need. How can we meet the demands of the employee, the process? How do you get a competitive edge on competition by increasing the skills of your incumbent employees? So we go in and do a needs analysis meeting or series of meetings, assessment with the employer. The employer tells us what they're looking to achieve by any training that we do in coordination with them, and then we put together that curriculum. And for example, topics that are very important to manufacturers are things like lean manufacturing, which is a process of reducing waste and increasing effectiveness and efficiency in the processing of the product. That reduces cost in materials and wasted time. That's a very important class. The ISO certification, that is the International Standards Organization certification of quality processes for a manufacturer. When a manufacturer receives that certification, it's a standardized perception that this company produces quality to a certain level, and it meets international standards. So those types of curricula are very important to manufacturers, and we can produce that specifically for the need indicated by the employer. So it's a rapid response to that need. That is one way that we adapt our curriculum to the needs of the manufacturer.
Let's say that there's maybe you've got a chief executive of a company watching right now, or someone involved in training who has some needs, and they can see, 2-3 years ahead of time, we've got this new product line coming out, we've got some new equipment coming out, we've got brand new technology coming in, we're building a brand new facility, and they're going to need this training, but they've got nothing in place aside from what they're able to do internally, but they don't have really the staffing, and they don't really have the prowess or the ability to put this together. So they need to approach a school to help them put these types of programs together for incumbent employees, perhaps. In this particular case, what would they do? I mean, how do they approach you? How do they get the ball rolling to start something like this?
It's a simple process. We try to make ourselves, I'm sure this is true of you, Robert, and Riverside, we try to make ourselves as accessible as possible. Kathy has mentioned the Inland Empire Manufacturers Council. We're at that table to be accessible for the sole purpose of being accessible as a resource to manufacturers. Both of our colleges, our departments maintain a website. There's, quick access to the right person who can work directly with that business and conduct the needs analysis and have that conversation that Robert is talking about. I think both Kathy and Robert nailed it. What we're best at, what I think our greatest gift to manufacturers is that customized training, a partner with them to look at what are their needs, how best can we meet them. We can, in some cases, coordinate access to funding sources that can help offset the cost of that training for
That's
an
right.
employer, and bring the top-notch subject matter experts that live, work, and have grown their background and their career experience right here in the Inland Empire to be able to bring them the latest information.
You just mentioned something that I think is really, really key, that there are dollars out there that are available to companies, and it's been kind of my discovery in recent months that many business owners, and it doesn't really matter the size of their business, are unaware that there are actually state funds, in some cases federal funds, that are able to take and offset these costs, and in some cases pay for the whole thing. How can people find out about that? Where are these resources at? How are they able to find out about these?
Well, I mean, I think just, obviously communicating with us, we have access to them. I think one of the funding sources that you're referring to is the Employment Training Panel, which is a source of funding which is ostensibly a rebate to employers from the state of California. Every employer pays into an employee's unemployment insurance. So the state of California sets aside from the state treasury out of that tax, if you will, that is paid by every employer, and sets aside funding. The intent is to be able to rebate this money back to the employer with the intent of improving the skills of the incumbent employees and encouraging employers to stay in the state of California, to keep their business operations open so that the economy obviously is stable and actually grows. So what the colleges can do, and we have done in the past, we go to the state of California, submit a proposal for a certain amount of funding that we then make available to employers when we meet with them, tell them it's available. Actually, anyone can find out about this, about this agency. It's etp.ca.gov. It's on the web, on the web, so that it's available to everyone. But the colleges are very particularly expert at making this almost like a non-event in terms of the amount of time invested by the employer to receive this benefit. So we are able to create a very streamlined approach at accessing these funds, making it almost, really they don't have to do any extra work to receive the funding as long as they cooperate and work with us. But it is based on, nothing is free. It is based on employee attendance to the classes, but that is really the only requirement in a sense. Just show up to the program that the employer has put before the employee to improve their skills. So the funding is accessible. The colleges are very good at implementing the programs, and we're here to help as much as we can to be able to maximize these benefits for employers.
We've already kind of talked a little bit about how the colleges are also involved in placement too, particularly with those companies that they work directly with.
Yes.
And I think the thing that many people don't understand, and particularly young people who may be making a decision to go to a trade school, for example, that may not necessarily be a bad choice per se, but sometimes the wiser choices are around the corner, and sometimes they're a little bit less expensive too. And so schools like Chaffey and the schools in the Riverside Community College District offer, I think, some opportunities that we're starting to see more of a full service involvement here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You're working directly with the companies. You're also
Yes.
working on behalf of incumbent employees and then the students from the ground up, offering the placement assistance as well, so that when a student is finished getting their education, they've gone through the programs, they've gotten their training, they're not going to be left out necessarily on a limb, but there's also the opportunity to work with the school to help find them the ideal position.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, part of the TACT grant will have a career center component to it. So, and that will be a fully operational job placement center. So we take that very seriously, because a degree or a certificate is great, but if you can't find a job with that degree or certificate, it's not serving you, it's not serving the community. So we take that very seriously. So the employment, and that's why having the ability to shift what we offer in training on a dime as to where the need is very important. That's what the center will also be able to do.
We've had a great conversation about how closely manufacturers and the local colleges are working, and I think we're probably going to start to see that spread out a little bit over the months and years to come, really, as manufacturing continues to grow, and particularly in inland Southern California, an area that we're all familiar with, obviously. How can schools and manufacturers work better together, really, than they're already doing, to determine the needs, really on both sides, being able to help fill skills gaps and bring on the employees that are so desperately needed, many of these jobs that are even today unfilled, that we're hearing about. Is there a way that manufacturers and the educators can work more closely to determine future needs and form an even closer bond in order to provide a greater number of programs and outreach to students in order to fill these jobs and create jobs and economic opportunity?
I can start there, Jeff. I think there might be two things here. I think the first is the willingness to come to the table. And at the community college level, we've seen that, through Chaffey's leadership over the years. That has absolutely been something that's been in place between education and industry, is a willingness to come to the table and discuss those issues. I think when we start looking at where some of us believe that that kind of education, that kind of conversation needs to start, is actually more at the high school level, even at the middle school level.
Absolutely.
So that we're kind of turning the corner on the perception issue that I mentioned earlier, is a willingness at that level. And it's there. It's certainly there in the Inland Empire, but probably more formalized opportunities for K-12 educators and manufacturers to come together. And I think part of that wraps back to access. And you mentioned it yourself. It sounds like maybe there's some education that needs to happen at the practitioner level before it's actually happening, and at the parent level before it's happening with the student. So I think opportunities where manufacturers are cooperating in some way, maybe it's televised or filmed tours, so that we can help, or rather they can help school districts start to see, what do these workplaces actually look like? What are some of the key job skills that are needed? I mean, there's terrific ways through media today to feature key job skills and career ladders and pathways that people have taken. And I think those are some of the buzzwords that would connect really well to counselors whose job it is to help students explore careers. So again, I think more formalized opportunities for K-12 educators and manufacturers to come to the table, access to probably not necessarily on site. That's very challenging for a manufacturer to do, particularly for minors. But if there's a way that minors and educators have some kind of televised or media assisted access to be able to see work sites, and pathways that allow them to gain access to, what do these jobs look like? What are the skills that are needed? And what's a potential educational pathway for a student to take? Those are the kind of words, that's the type of language that counselors in K-12 education speak. Let's help make sure they have the information.
And I think also we do a lot of, some of our great partners are the workforce investment boards. They're very involved in the TAC and the Manufacturers Council. And they do a lot of LMI, labor market information publications. And I think it would be very helpful to get that information into the high schools and even the middle schools. I mean, just, make it a lower level for the middle school, but certainly a discussion point, because these are good paying jobs.
Absolutely.
These are family supporting wages, and that's something that if you want to, teaching's wonderful, but you look at the different pay that you get in manufacturing versus in teaching in some of our degree programs. Money speaks to kids and to parents, and if you're looking at a livelihood, a long-term livelihood, and again, that innovative spirit if that's there, because sometimes we stifle that.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's a shame. And if we found programs where we could actually enhance it and encourage it and motivate that, then that it will turn. I mean, the tide will turn, and parents will be aware. It's, advanced manufacturing is highly technical. You can use your innovative spirit. You can, invent things. Your ingenuity, your critical thinking is all there. And then the wages are there, and their potential of moving up is there. So that's the story that needs to be shared, because I don't think we do it well at all.
I think something too that can be easily missed. There's actually a book, I don't recall the author's name, but it's Shop Class as Soul Craft, and it looks specifically at lifetime job satisfaction. And there's a real correlation that's explored in this book between output, productivity. When you are involved in creating something, when you're involved in producing something tangible that you can see, there's a correlation between lifetime job satisfaction. And what parent doesn't want some of the things that Chaffey talked
That's
about?
interesting, yeah.
Family sustaining wages, the possibility to have an exceptional job here in their community around their family as opposed to having to leave. But additionally, we want our young people to be happy. We want them to have a healthy lifestyle. Fulfilled. And I think that's sometimes something that can be overlooked, whether it's from a parent perspective or an education perspective, and helping young people to choose careers that are going to be satisfying in multiple ways.
Yeah, well, I know when you talked about innovation before, and we've talked about what I believe is the assumption or perception of manufacturing as a large plant where a lot of processes take place and many products are manufactured, but there's also the small entrepreneurial manufacturer that has 2 and 3 employees, and they come up with an idea, they want to create a prototype and maybe upscale it later on to manufacture it elsewhere if they're not going to be the initial manufacturer. And that kind of innovation, the startup concept is a key element that I think we need to have students become aware of, because becoming the owner of your own company, working at it to make, makers of things. Actually, there's a watch company that started up recently in Detroit, and Detroit's gone through a very large renaissance because of the lack of industry there. The watch company is called Shinola, right? And they make these very expensive, manufactured in the U.S. watches, but they're beautiful timepieces. The idea is that there is an opportunity to create products that, not just to go to a company to work for it, but to actually start your own business or be a provider to a larger business, meaning you provide some of the widgets that the other company needs to make the bigger assembly. So a variety of opportunities exist, and I think that entrepreneurial innovation is something that can be stimulated, and it's an opportunity for the businesses to grow, the economy to grow, because if you look at the statistics, really there are a lot more small companies than there are large manufacturers. So so we look to all of the opportunities, and one of the things that I wanted to add, just to sidetrack a little bit, is the direct ability to work with the business when we do this training, when we connect with the industry as representatives of the college. We get asked often, do you know of anybody who's who has a talent as a purchasing agent? Do you know somebody? Could you refer someone to? So we'll go back to our colleges and go to their career centers and say, are there any students that have these skills? And I've personally been the agent for making a referral that it gets a student hired, like directly to the employer, because we have that contact with industry. So so there are all these opportunities and resources that the colleges can be the bridge to industry for our communities. So the innovation, the skills, the technical skills that we hope to impart to our our stakeholders. All of these things are really a part of what we do, and so they're out there. We need to advertise better and get it out there more, that story out there.
Really key important points, and just to remind us that innovation doesn't necessarily stop at the boundaries of the Silicon Valley, I think.
That's right,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
Final
Well
thoughts.
said.
Let's go ahead and we'll go around the table. Final takeaways from today's discussion. Alicia, just anything right off the top of your head that you can think of that you want people to kind of take away from today?
Absolutely. I mean, thinking of the audience that's out there listening to this today, Robert was talking about the subsidized funding that we have available for training, and something that I didn't add at the time is manufacturers are perfectly poised to take advantage of that.
That's right.
They are a key recognized industry for this funding. And so if there's a manufacturer out there who has a new product line coming in, some endeavor that's coming up that requires upgrading employee skill sets, I would implore them to absolutely reach out to one of their local community colleges and try to receive that assistance. We're happy to assist with that. It's a key benefit. As Robert said, it's a rebate that employers should take advantage of.
They've already paid the taxes. They might as well get some
Right.
money back.
Get some use
Right.
out of it. Kathy?
I think my last word to impart would be the fact that we are very fortunate to live in an area where there is such great collaboration. I mean, between the community colleges, we're not competitive, and we were, I would say, 3 or 4 years ago. This is something that is new, that the silos have broken down. We're very collaborative, and the workforce investment boards, we're very fortunate that ours are very receptive of partnering, and then our industry partners. I mean, it's just wonderful to me. When I facilitated the beginning of the council, we had seven industry partners, all steel manufacturers. We now have over 50.
Wow.
So, and we're just now moving into Riverside. So, I mean, that's great. That's a great report for our community, for the collective collaboration. You don't find that in other areas, and I think that's why we were awarded that grant. And the last thing is on the incubation, on innovation. The center does have a component to concentrate on an incubation. A business incubator will also be there. So we do want to encourage that innovative spirit, and we want to capture that for the Inland Empire.
Right. Yeah, I guess final words for me would be is that we'd like to get the message out that that the community colleges be viewed as strategic partners for industry. That we have these resources. Obviously, we have the academic side that produces students that graduate and have degrees and certificates. But in terms of being able to connect and look at, we want to be seen as strategic partners to have these resources become available at a real fast pace and as needed. We're there for industry, and we look forward to working, with our partners.
Well, everybody, this has been a great chat. I want to thank you so much for your time. We really enjoyed having you on Manufacturers Corner today, and that's going to wrap up another edition of our program, our first Educators Roundtable discussion on Manufacturers Corner. Thanks again to our guests, Alicia Serrano and Kathy Dutton of Chaffey College, and also Robert Grajeda of Riverside Community College District for joining us today. If you're a manufacturer, policymaker, or educator and you'd like to take part in our discussions as a guest or member of a future roundtable discussion, please complete our contact form on the contact page at manufacturerscorner.com. Or you can call us at 951-687-3098. Now, if you'd like to be a sponsor of Manufacturers Corner, we'd be happy to talk with you about that as well. Again, just visit the contact page at manufacturerscorner.com or call us at 951-687-3098. When you get in touch with us, we'll get back to you, and we'll also include you on our email list to update you about important future updates on programs, events, and all the like. For Manufacturers Corner, I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks so much for watching.
This program was brought to you by the following proud sponsors: Paulson Manufacturing, saving the eyes and lives of workers and first responders by manufacturing the highest quality and most reliable safety protective gear in the world. And by the All-Tech Media Group, the region's leading multimedia video production and marketing company, creating powerful and innovative marketing strategies that deliver exponential returns.